Marguerite Pauline Bellilote was born in Pamiers, in southern France on the 15th of March 1778. Her father was a clockmaker called Henri Jacques Clément Bellilote, and her mother was Marguerite Brandon. As a young woman, she worked as a milliner apprentice in Carcassonne. During this time, she met a handsome gentleman called Jean-Noël Fourès. The young man was in actual fact the lieutenant of the 22nd Chasseurs, who was on sick leave from military duty, having returned from fighting in the Pyrenees. The couple soon married and went away to celebrate, but sadly, their honeymoon was abruptly ended when Jean-Noël was called back to active service, this time for the Egyptian campaign. Before the army set sail, strict orders were laid out. Wives or lovers were not allowed to accompany officers on the expedition. Yet Pauline was desperate to stay with her husband, so, despite the order, she disguised herself in military uniform, accompanying Jean-Noël and the French army aboard the ship La Lucette. Although this was prohibited, other adventurous, bold women did the exact same thing. The voyage aboard the transport ship lasted for over 50 days. Despite this, Pauline managed to remain undetected throughout, thanks to her charm, wit, and undoubtedly her chasseur uniform. Although Pauline's identity wasn't officially discovered, it's very possible that many officers knew that she was a woman. Well, it would have been extremely difficult for the couple not to have raised suspicions during the long voyage. It's likely that the men on board turned a blind eye to the fact that she was someone's wife, as they enjoyed the female company, even if it was just some friendly chatter. After 54 days, Pauline and her husband finally arrived in Alexandria. They then travelled to Cairo, arriving on the 30th of July 1798. At last, she was able to dress as she pleased and throw away the uncomfortable uniform which she had worn for almost 2 months. While in the city, it was said that she held little communication with the other officers, and the young couple were cited as models of wedded bliss. When the French arrived in Cairo, they instantly noticed the cultural differences and how the city was nothing like home. The local women dressed in a way most of the French had never seen before. They wore burqas, which concealed their whole body except their eyes. Furthermore, there were no bread ovens, no quality wines, no newspapers, and forms of entertainment were minimal. To improve morale among his army, Napoleon set about introducing a more Western lifestyle to Cairo. He made sure that the city had bread, wine, and newspapers which lived up to the expectations of the French. Moreover, to entertain the army, a pleasure garden called Tivoli Égyptien was opened. It was based on its French counterpart, Parisien Tivoli. It had a club, all sorts of games, live music, and even performers who entertained those present. All that was missing was European women. Of course there were a few, but most of these had followed their husbands or lovers. On the evening of the 30th of November 1798, at the Tivoli Égyptien, Napoleon exchanged glances with Pauline. He then approached her, paying her many compliments, even though this was the first time they had met. Pauline was described as being little with a slim figure. She had blonde hair, lovely teeth, and beautiful skin. She was very pretty, and for the French army officers, she was a true beauty. After chatting for some time, Napoleon noticed how many were watching them, so he ended the slightly awkward conversation and left. Napoleon was extremely attracted to Pauline, so he courted her, hoping she would soon feel the same way. However, Pauline was a married woman who didn't succumb easily to the general's expensive gifts and charming letters. Of course, she was flattered by the effort Napoleon was making, but it was made clear that nothing would occur while her husband was still in Cairo. During these weeks of flattery, Pauline remained faithful to her husband, but whether it was due to love or fear, we do not know. Jean-Noël Fourès was said to be a jealous, short-tempered man, which was only made worse by all the attention she was getting. On the 17th of December, 1798, Jean-Noël Fourès was given orders which would take him far away from Cairo. He was to carry dispatches to the Directory in Paris, await reply, and then return to Egypt. Although there was no urgency to deliver the dispatches, he was told that he must leave immediately and alone. Of course, it was due to orders from Napoleon that Jean-Noël was sent so far away without any notice. Napoleon had now freed Pauline of her jealous husband and wasted no time in conquering her. That same day, Napoleon hosted a dinner party inviting several French officers and ladies. Pauline sat beside him and was as charming as ever. During the dinner, Napoleon accidentally spilled a jug of cold water over Pauline. Shortly after this, they left for Napoleon's quarters so that she could repair the damage to her soaking dress. Napoleon showed her the way to the bedroom, but instead of returning quickly, it seemed as if they stayed there for about an hour. The other guests noted this prolonged absence, although it came as little surprise because most knew of the pair's feelings for each other. It did confirm some suspicions. Soon after, Pauline moved into a house which was close to Napoleon's residence. While her husband was away, she travelled everywhere with Napoleon. She organised trips to the pyramids, hosted dinner parties, and would in general entertain the French army's senior officers. Soon the whole army based in Egypt knew of her liaison with Napoleon. When she passed French troops, they would cheer for her. They also gave her the nickname Cléopâtre or La Générale. Despite Napoleon and Pauline being married to different people, it was clear that they were in love. While in Egypt, Napoleon learnt of his wife's infidelity, which he had believed had stopped. Of course, this broke his heart, and perhaps it was this that led to his liaison with Pauline. While in Egypt, it seemed that he was set on divorcing his wife Josephine once he returned for France, not only for her unfaithfulness, but also as she had been unable to bear children. While Pauline was still moving into her new home, her husband, Jean-Noël Fourès, arrived unexpectedly. Just under 2 weeks after Fourès was sent away, his ship, Le Chasseur, was captured by the English frigate Lion. Apparently, the British knew about Napoleon's love life and how he was bedding Fourès's wife. So, once they realised his dispatches were useless, they sent him back to Alexandria. Fourès reported these events to Auguste de Marmont and then urged him that he be sent back to Cairo. Although his superior initially tried to retain him in Alexandria, as he knew the reasons behind why Napoleon sent him away, he eventually agreed to Fourès's demands. Once Fourès made it to his home in Cairo, he found that his wife had left, along with many of their belongings. Shortly after this, he was informed of her relationship with Napoleon, making his way to her new home in Esbekia Square. Fourès raged at his wife, demanding that she return home with him. But after she refused, he struck her. Fortunately, nearby officers were alarmed by the commotion and soon restrained Fourès. Pauline then demanded a divorce to escape his brutality. Within hours, this was granted. Following this, Pauline went back to using her maiden name of Bellilote, although the army knew her simply as Bellilote. As Napoleon's official mistress, she continued to entertain officers, hosting dinner parties as she had done before, but she was now seen much more often in public with Napoleon and was kept in even greater luxury. Around 2 months later, Napoleon left Pauline in Cairo as he made his way to Syria. While he was away, It's thought that he wrote her very passionate letters. Following the Syrian expedition, Napoleon briefly returned to Cairo and made his way to France in late August 1799, leaving orders that Pauline should accompany him as soon as a vessel was available. However, his general, Jean-Baptiste Kleber, who was in charge of the French army in Egypt, put many obstacles in her way. Finally, in 1800, Pauline set sail aboard the neutral ship, the America, but they were soon stopped by an English ship. Pauline was a captive for a short while and was later sent back to Alexandria. It wasn't until several months later that she managed to find a ship which took her back to France. Sadly for Pauline, it was too late. Napoleon and his wife Josephine had a full reconciliation, and as he was now first consul, he needed to maintain a good moral standing. Later that year, she married a man who came from a good family called Henri de Ranchop. It's said that Pauline was banned from entering Paris, but despite this, she spent a lot of time there. Napoleon always refused to see her, but he granted every monetary request she had. Napoleon bought her a mansion and gave her lots of cash. Throughout the years, it's thought that they only ever met on one more occasion, which was during a ball in 1811. By 1814, Pauline, now Madame de Ranchop, was well integrated into French high society. She even became a fairly accomplished painter and author, publishing a novel in 2 volumes called Lord Wentworth. Years later, she published another book called A Chatelaine of the 12th Century. Pauline also donated lots of money, pictures, and paintings to various French museums throughout her life. In 1816, Pauline separated from her husband, later starting a new relationship with a former guard officer called Sieur Jean-Auguste Bellart. With her new husband, she sailed to Brazil and established a business selling exotic woods such as rosewood and mahogany. For about 20 years, she frequently sailed between France and Brazil, managing her business. Eventually, she restored her fortune and retired. In 1837, she settled in Paris and lived in a large apartment surrounded by her pet birds and monkeys. Pauline had many friends, played the harp, and continued to paint and write into her old age. She was even known to scare churchgoers, as she would always take her small dog with her to Sunday Mass. Pauline Fourès died on the 18th of March, 1869, aged 90. She was healthy right up until her death. Before she passed away, Pauline, or Comtesse de Ranchop, as she liked to be called, destroyed the letters that Napoleon had written her throughout the years by burning them. Pauline's life was full of excitement. It seems like she lived life to the full, as many of us aspire. She was one of Napoleon's most colourful mistresses, and it's likely that she was the Egyptian campaign's oldest survivor. Thank you everyone for watching this video. If you enjoyed it, leave me a like and a comment down below. If you're new, why not subscribe? This was suggested to me in the comments, so if you do have any interesting suggestions, please leave me a comment down below and I'll look into it and see if I can cover the story soon. Anyway, I'll see all of you in the next Forgotten Life. Thanks!